Welcome everybody back to the channel. I'm Steve Patterson. This is the Free Will Burning Podcast. I am joined with my Gen X transplant brother Troy, who should be right here. How you doing today, Troy?
Wonderful today, Steve.
Wonderful today. I love it every time. More gusto. I love that. So today, what we're going to do, folks out there, let's cut to the chase. We're going to talk about the 10 best live albums that we really like that were recorded during the time, basically up to the end of 1985 and before, that sort of are in uh, the cloud, you could say, of the bands that we liked at the time. We do go a little bit outside of heavy metal, but most of it's going to be the heavy metal you heard us talk about before. So with that out of the way, Troy, you ready to talk about this?
I am so ready. A great subject.
Great subject. All right, so let me tell everybody, this is our ground rules. This came to me as something to do, and I sent Troy, I said, tell me your top 10 live albums. And but don't tell me right now. I'm going to ask you in a couple of days to send me a list. And so what I did is I went ahead and made my list. And I, thought about it a little bit. Are we going to rank them 1 to 10? Nah, it's just too subjective to do that. Let's just talk about the best 10. But I'd already told Troy to do it that way. And he did when he replied after I had mine. And so I decided just to sort of toss out the ranking them as far as, how much we love them, so to speak, or whatever you want to say. And so I joined them together. And so lo and behold, we have 16 total live albums here. And we're going to run down the top 10 right now in the first way, sort of, because the top four we both share. But then from there on out, it gets a little bit different. So let's do the math on that. So that's, so 4, 6, and 6. So anyway, it's a little bit different. So we have a bunch of them. We're ready to go. So the one, go ahead, Troy, when you thought about this, what made you think about this album? And which one's coming up first. The one that's really, I think, bedrock in the whole waking our eyes up to rock and roll, heavy metal didn't really happen yet, but this was loud, obnoxious, fun, and just over the top.
Oh man. Yeah, it's the album that got me going, that's for sure.
And that would be this one right here. We're both starting out with 1975 when Kiss came out with Alive. And this album here, I mean, everything from the drum solo in 100,000 Years to, I mean, even Hotter Than Hell and so many other songs. I mean, I've had a lot of there's Strutter before Strutter 78 came out and sort of changed the song, a good version of it there. I mean, Cold Gin, all that from Ace. That album really lit us up. And I think you probably introduced me to that. How did you come into knowing of that? And what did that impact on you? I mean, how did you love that album?
Um oh gosh, I think my grandmother's neighbor in Neoga, Illinois, Carl, I forgot his last name, but he had that 8 track. And I'd go over to his house and right next door, and he'd play that, and like, wow, these guys are really good. And I
Yes.
believe that's
And
before the rock and roll all night and party every day got famous.
but it's 75 as the album came out. 76 Rock and Roll Over came out, and that was the first album that we both went out and got, and that's what really turned us on. And so moving quickly through this, we also both had in our top 10, so our top four are the same, this album here. And this is the version of The Boys Are Back in Town that almost everybody in the world is familiar with. But the rest of this album in general, I mean, Troy, what about Thin Lizzy? You talk about this album a lot. Talk about these
That is
songs.
that is I still listen to that probably 2 or 3 times a month when I'm just messing around. That album will never ever get old to me.
Yeah.
And I heard Boys Are Back in Town in '76. I think this album came out in '78. But when
Yes.
that album came out, it was like, and the 2 guitar players, Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson, just their
Wow.
guitar work together, that was just got me going like, "Wow, 2 lead guitar players? What's this all about?"
I know that. I mean, that was
Yeah.
before we'd heard anybody do something like that. Of course, it became commonplace. I mean,
I
by the
think
time you
they
get to
were the
Iron Maiden,
first
it's
to
a default. But
I think Thin Lizzy was the first to do that setup.
I will say at the end of this, we're going to talk about some bands that did not make this cut, and I don't want to foreshadow that too much, but there were some earlier bands, and one of them is one that we're going to mention later on. We'll get back to the two guitar players playing as far as this synonymous sound. And so I'm trying to control how these screens, and some of these images I might have to zoom in as we go through. But the next one, the third one, this one I've mentioned before, and I don't see it here, but do you recall the album cover actually looked like a stain of a coffee cup?
Yes, it did. I wonder
It
why
might
it's
be on the
not
reverse
there.
side. It might be on the reverse side. But I
Yeah,
remember
that
when
could
I
be.
got it, I got it for Christmas because I'd been asking for it when it came out. It was like brand new, it was for sale. And I got it, and I went over to a friend of mine's house, and we were down in his basement. I mean, the old traditional basement where it's like, it's a cement floor and there's a water heater and sinks and stuff like this. And I laid it down and I saw the coffee stain on it. And I always remember that, like a sunlight coming in on a washing machine in this basement and seeing this album. And it looked like it just happened to be there, like it had been there forever. And then when I listened to it, man, boy, and I'll stop here, but Chip Away at the Stone, that was my introduction to that song. And that one sent me on my sort of limited time in the Aerosmith space. That song did it. And this was such a freaking great album.
Yeah, and you open it up and there's all kinds of pictures of them live, and that was my first introduction to BC Rich guitars because Brad Woodford and Joe Perry both had BC Rich bitches, and I'd looked at those things,
Wow.
"What in the heck are those things? I like them."
Exactly. And there you go. Footnote, folks. Down the line, we got to talk about those. Remember the Warlocks, the bitch, and then all that other
Yeah,
stuff. I mean, those are some,
Mockingbirds.
yeah, those are some interesting guitar. We'll get back to that in a later episode. But okay, so next up, this one, Troy. When I saw this on your list, I was like, whoa, 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 wait, did he Google this or something? How did he wind up with this? Because this, for me, clearly is from. I put it on here because my spillover into the Grateful Dead by the late '80s. This was already a staple, and and so Fat Man in the Bathtub and all these other songs on
Yep.
there, and so I was just so in love with it. And then I saw Little Feat play with the Grateful Dead a couple times. It's called Dead Feet. And so Little Feat would play first, then Dead afterwards. Of course, it wasn't this version of Little Feat, but it was the later edition of them in the late '80s. And so I mean, they were like part of that scene. And then I was one thinking in 1990, you came and picked me up, and I was living in New Jersey, and that's when I moved to Arizona. And that's when you and I ultimately went and saw the Grateful Dead and stuff like this together. And after I'd been doing it there, and I'm wondering, did I introduce you to this, or did you know about this prior to me coming back? And when we sort of reunited there in 1980, having not seen each other like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years.
No, you introduced that album to me, and, I really got into Little Feat, and because you introduced that to me, but Fat Man in the Bathtub, that's still one
Yeah.
of my
Oh,
favorite
Atlanta.
songs.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
Atlanta, Dixie Chicken. I mean, there's so many, and then
Dixie
Sailor stuff,
Chicken.
right? And then the
Dixie
like the
Chicken.
one in the Caribbean island, Spanish Moon. I mean, there's so many, and
Oh,
that's just off this, and so and this led me sort of all to bands for any people in this space, like Leftover Salmon and stuff like that during that time. A little bit after that, like 10 years later, but this is a great album for people that have not ever listened to this. Even if you're like Mr. I'm totally metal or I'm totally whatever, this is a great album. Just give it a listen if you have Spotify or whatever. Go Google it on YouTube and just listen to it. It's really, really well played. Great band. Hugely great influence. On we go now. So we are now deviating. Troy and I did not have the remaining six the same. Since we just talked about Little Feat, the time is appropriate for me to reintroduce the Grateful Dead to you again. This sort of just come in the last few weeks since Bob Weir passed away, and I randomly posted a message about that. And so now we have some deadheads here, and that's fine. That's great. That's my oldest family in this group, I guess, beyond maybe the shirt that I'm wearing. And and so I wanted to limit myself because I could easily put all 10 just Grateful Dead. I could just do a Jerry Garcia band. I could probably just do a Rat Nut. You know? But anyway, this album here I'm going to pick as my only that I'm going to put on the top 10, just because if you want to understand, if not understand, but if you want to really get a feel for the Grateful Dead without any prior experience. You just completely open mind. Listen to this from 1980. It was when they did a run of shows at Radio City Music Hall and at Warfield. I was never at Radio City, but I've been to many nights at Warfield Theater seeing not the Dead there, but I saw Jerry Garcia there and stuff like that. The Dead was too big by the time I got there to play there. But this album here is acoustic, and it has some of their best songs, some of the best versions of these songs. I mean, if you really want to have such a thing, great album. Troy, do you remember hearing any of these things? Like, this is the classic, like, Electric Ripple that you hear, and so many of them come from this album. This might be around the same time you heard Little Feat.
I do not remember that album at all.
Well,
I
damn,
just don't remember
storm
it.
cloud just came over you with a boot.
I looked
Okay,
at that like,
back
I
to
love
heavy
that
metal.
artwork.
So
I love that
that's a,
artwork, but I have
I thought
never
about getting
seen
into
that
that.
album in my life.
Right, that's awesome. I love that.
Well,
Okay,
I
so
think it's
with that out of
because
the way,
y
what?
yeah.
This
Well,
is
you had so
yours.
many
This is
bootleg
yours.
tapes that
Okay,
would
so
oh, yeah, there we go.
I took Grateful Dead Reckoning as my next, and of course here we have I Want You to Want Me and Clock Strikes 10, which the first time I ever picked up a music book to actually try to figure out how to play a guitar song, whatever, how you want to phrase that, back in 1976 or whatever it was when I had my Memphis Les Paul copy. Um, and I learned how to play the singing line. Dan, 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 dan. So I'm sitting there on the E string, just doing it G, G, E, thinking, I'm like, wow, man, I'm playing like Cheap Trick. And so it was interesting how this band actually drew me into the first time that I ever looked at sheet music. And from there, I, of course, eventually got a better understanding of it. But that's where it began. And this was huge for both of us.
Yeah, I love that album because we saw him on on the Heaven Tonight tour, which that album came from, that tour. I saw him warm up, Mom and Dad remember the Donnie and Marie show? Well, they went on
Yes,
tour, and
exactly.
they came to Tucson, Arizona, and Mom and Dad wanted to take the family out for a good family wholesome evening with Donnie and Marie, and Cheap
Got your
Trick was the
chicken,
opening
your
band. Cheap Trick was the opening band, and it was just great to see Mom and Dad like, "I think we're in the wrong place." And me and Greg were like, "I like these guys."
yes. Yeah, and so then we saw them the first time we saw Kiss. They opened for Kiss in the
Yeah,
Mesa, the Tucson Community Center.
yeah, that
Uh,
was just a couple months later after, and
exactly, exactly.
I remember I remember Cheap Trick more than I remember Kiss. I don't remember Kiss at all. I remember
I
when the
remember the
flames
other way
came up, it got
around.
really hot.
I remember the other way around. I barely remember seeing Cheap Trick. Um, I don't know if I ever saw him another time, but I know I was there. And it was well before the time that it would have involved other substances as to why I don't know. We were what, 11?
Yeah.
Dropped off at in those literally, okay, there's your Gen X mythic story, getting dropped off 45 miles away at a random community center where Kiss and Cheap Trick are playing your 11-year-old and your 11-year-old and your 12-year-old brother. So there's three of us. And we go
All
to the
the
show, and then later we pick us up in like a gravel parking lot afterwards.
all the pot smoke in the air is kinda why I think I don't remember Kiss.
See, I wouldn't even have known. I'd be like, what the hell? How, what, did a skunk get in or something? All right. So my next one, going back over to the other side. So I guess we're at number 4 or 5 now. So UFO Strangers of the Night. This was a great one. I mean, Michael Schenker, hugely impactful guitar player on the sound in general, the sort of guitar player sound that I was growing up in Chicago at the time. So it was this odd mix of Randy Rhoads and him, Shanker, and then other Shankers from like Scorpions. And that was really it. There was a little bit of like with me, I was one of the few people who was into Iron Maiden early on. But so he was core to this whole sound. This album is so freaking great. I could still listen to this album anytime. Rock Bottom, the way the lead up to it, or like Lights Out Chicago. So many great songs on this. Are you familiar with this album much, Troy?
I love, Lights Out in London, and I remember when you had that album,
Chicago.
you came for the summer, and you knew how to play Rock Bottom on guitar, and you
Yeah.
showed me how to play it, and I'd never heard the Rock Bottom before, but you
I
showed me
used
how to play Rock Bottom because. So I knew how to play it before I even knew what it sounded like because you showed me.
Right, I used to love that, bam, 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 down, down, da, down, da, da, all that stuff. I mean, that was such a great thing. And yeah, so yeah, it was Lights Out in London, but I think on this album, that song might have been recorded in Chicago, or there's
Right.
a version out there where he does say "Lights Out Chicago" in there, so that's why I said "Lights Out Chicago."
That makes
Never
sense. That
mind the
gets the
fact that I was
crowd
from
going.
Chicago at the time, but I never had a chance to see UFO. I saw Scorpions a few times, but not as adjacent, but not UFO
Yeah, I've
itself.
never seen UFO either. Oh, there we go.
This one got me because this is, like, personal. I was like, "How did I forget this?" 'Cause this is, like, right after Kiss Alive. Even, like, almost even between I mean, well, Budokan and Kiss Alive, Cheap Trick, that's sort of together because we saw them together. But this album, Fool for the City, and so many, and then we got the earlier albums and listened to all of them, but this album, this live version, all these songs, this we were all in. Do you recall? You do.
I do.
Yeah,
Again,
it's your
that
list.
grandma's neighbor Carl had that 8 track, and I've listened to Foghat, and he saw Foghat in I think the Illinois State Fair, and so I was a big Foghat fan. Remember that album though, the live where it says live across there, those letters were cut out and those pictures were actually on the inside sleeve.
Ah, when you open it opened up, and so yeah,
Yeah, so
there you
when you
go,
take the
yeah,
sleeve out, all those pictures are gone.
right. Well, they had some clever design. Remember, I love the one album, I think it's Fool for the City, if there's an album called that, where it shows the
Yep.
guy sitting by a pothole, and he's, like, fishing in, like, New York City
Yeah, he's
into a
fishing in a
pothole.
sewer sewer.
It's like, you gotta be kidding me. That was good stuff. But, yeah, Foghat, man, that was some big stuff for us. I mean, still, when you hear that slow ride, the whole that you can't you have to stop and just listen to the entire
That
buildup.
that I
You're
hear that and
see a
it
penalty
takes
flag
me
thrown
back.
on you.
I hear Slow Ride today, and it takes me back to 1976 and what
There
was
you go.
happening in my life in 1976.
I wonder how gas prices compare. Interesting. All right, so the next one on my side of the aisle, this one is kind of out there for me because I was never a Rush person per se, but I've always, to this day, loved listening to all of their stuff through the entire catalog as it came out. As sort of like an aside, knowing that they were there, sort of like these gods of rock, and so good. And when this came out, I just could not believe this was actually a live performance. And though we did not know it at the time, I think right now, unless somebody wants to call me out on this, or show otherwise. I think this is an album that is damn near literally a live performance, like little or no scrubbing or overdubbing or anything like that. And I've seen these guys play on video. I've never seen them play live, and you can tell that Alex Lifeson and all these guys. I mean, Geddy Lee, the way that he's doing this, like the Moog synthesizer thing with his feet and all that. Not to mention the probably the best drummer in the history of rock and roll, Neil Peart. I mean, this band was just through the roof. And this album, when it came out, remember the what's the name of that song? Emotional Ways
Spirit of the
Lays by
Radio?
Spirit of the Radio, exactly. I mean, the way that it just sounded so perfect. I loved it.
Yeah, they were just top-notch rock music, man.
Did you ever try to play any of their songs?
Nope. I felt like it was too difficult, so I never tried. I saw them live twice on the Permanent Waves tour and then the Moving Pictures tour, and they just floored me both times, like that's what
Yeah.
they were just amazing band.
I played Spirit of the Radio, and then the Tom Sawyer, that one, and there was another one that, Lakeside Park, I think is the name of
Ah.
it,
Oh, I
and then
do know
there's
how to
another one,
play.
My Uncle Has a Summer Home or whatever,
Yep,
that Red Barchetta, I remember
yep,
because the bass player was totally into it, he wanted to try to do the do 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 do, that whole thing with the
yep.
harmonics or whatever the hell Geddy Lee's doing, um, so yeah,
I
that was freaking great album.
I guess I did learn how to play Fly By Night by mistake.
Uh, exactly, and that goes back even earlier. Remember the big old bird on
Yeah.
there, but right, that's when we first heard them before this album came out because we'd already heard. I remember when 2112 was released and what a big deal that was. Remember, we are the priests in the temple of Siri. Da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da, da. That I knew. Yes, that was another one. And we played that in Garage Band Chicago. I remember having we
Yeah.
played that was like a standard. That and another brick in the wall. I mean, or whatever it is. We don't need no education, whatever the actual track name is for that one. But you had to know how that so that little bluesy sort of put it on the rhythm sound in another brick in the wall. This
Ha!
always reminded
Ugh.
me of a clown show gone live. To me, this was like all the people we looked up to. If you know, before we had things like Freddy Krueger, or I don't know, I mean, just like things that were like over the top, scary, or too much. This put Gene Simmons to shame almost to me. He was like, "What the hell is going on?"
Well,
And the
it
music
was
was
like
so good. He was so good. You
he,
loved it. This is yours.
I love that album because I mean, as a kid, nobody could cuss on any albums, and that Ted Nugent was saying every swear word you
Okay.
can't say on that album. I was like, "I like this guy." And,
Yeah.
like, one of the songs before the song, he goes, "If any of you wanna get mellow, you can turn it around and get the F out of here." Like, "Whoa."
Yeah. Yeah,
So
then he had, like, words before we could even I mean, we couldn't even say
right,
"damn." And here
I
is a
can't
song,
say the
"Wing Dang
things.
Sweet Poontang," and people are like,
Yeah.
"What does that mean?" It's like turns into, like, the Mellow Yellow song from the '60s, like, "Are they telling us to smoke bananas?" So we all, like, make up urban legends around what this song means, So it's like, what the hell? Kinda like AC/DC with that song, "Oi, oi." Remember they did the "oi" thing? And there was
Yep.
some people like, "Do you know what that means in French?" "No, I don't." And so
Oh,
then they would
yeah.
go. I don't
Come
even
up with
recall that all.
something.
We'll come back to those guest stories later. Okay, next up on my side of the aisle, let's let that let's let that sink in, folks. One of us always talks about Iron Maiden, and the other one, not called me, always talks about Judas Priest. And one of us thought to include this album. Troy, what about Unleashed to the East? When you when you turned me on to this, Green Manalishi, Ripper, I mean, this was just over the top good.
Oh, yeah,
Tell
man, that
I'll let you
just
introduce this one.
yeah, man, I can't believe I didn't even have that on my list because Priest was my thing, man. But that first song, Exciter, like, "Whoa, hey, now these guys are starting off pretty heavy," and it just keeps getting heavier as it goes. Like, "Whoa."
Such that I mean, these are such great versions of these songs for that classic heavy metal, new wave, whatever it's called, new wave heavy metal, whatever that there's an acronym for it. But I mean, 101. This album passes anybody's muster. It has to, if from that era. So we're saying that right now. you know, if you're a real Gen X metal person from that era, this album is very, very good, at least, if not better. So
And the way
yeah, man,
KK
this album
Downing is posing with his flying V there, I thought,
up in the air
"Wow,
like
that
that.
guy."
And look how Glenn and Ian are just sort of like got their axes down, like, hey, we're
Yeah.
confident, we're posing.
And
Meanwhile,
then
you can't
what
even
I
see Dave Holland. Dave
oh,
Holland's
that's
just there, I
Les
guess.
Binks. That's Les Binks, and I think
Oh,
they released this album because he had quit, and they didn't have anything
ah.
to put down, so that's why Rob Halford's kinda in front of where he probably was not in the picture.
There you go, folks. Live. We have the correction and now the education. I didn't know that. Thanks for
Yeah,
pointing that out. That is interesting. Why would they not put him there? But yeah, so yeah, I forgot about Les Binks prior to Dave Holland.
yeah.
Great
He's
album.
the best one they had, I
So
think.
while I thought about this, you thought about this.
Oh, oh, yes.
Energy. This is building
Oh,
up to my
man.
favorite all time, perhaps later. But man, tell me about Derringer and then just that raw rock and roll hoochie coo type thing.
Yeah, that album, Brother Greg bought that 'cause, he KT, I think, was the AM rock station in Tucson, and they were 99 AM, and so KTKT presents Rick Derringer for 99 cents at, like, Warehouse Records.
Exactly.
And we wanted to go see Derringer, and mom took us, and he'd already played. It was in the parking lot and played and gone, and Greg bought that album. I was like, we listened to it, and I just love Rick Derringer's guitar playing, man. It's just such a rock and roll guy, man. And there you
I
have
know.
it on that cover. I do believe that's a BC Rich Mockingbird.
Well, there you go. Back to the BC Rich.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a little bit on him as a guitar player. I like the just freedom to just jam, just go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he has this entire solo memorized. It's the same way, or at least the same basic structure that's identifiable. I mean, he was like really to go off the rails. You know,
Yeah.
whatever
He was
he could feel the energy of the audience and respond, and that is what made this such, and what made him, or it does still. I think he's still alive.
I liked
Such a great
and
presence.
and I loved the way he dressed in, like, cowboy boots, blue jeans, and a blue
Yes,
jean jacket. I just thought that was so
exactly.
cool.
I mean, come on, man. That's ultimate. Look at the hair. I mean, you got a little
Yeah.
bit of that pre-feathered thing going on,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, down on the side doing the Ace Frehley kind of dig down. I don't know if Ace started that, but he was certainly famous for it. But yet upright, not doing the whole lead back all the way. I mean, puts his own stamp on it. Looks cool. Definitely looks cool.
Yes.
So back to my side. This one I might, since last fall when we started talking about doing this, I've been re-listening to some of these older things. And it's interesting. This and Accept might have the most impact on me lasting as far as how much I really want to just listen to it over and over again. I have listened to Live at the Inferno probably 50 times over the past few months because I literally put it on repeat on Spotify and it plays during the day while I'm here or when I'm driving because my phone connects to the car. It's everywhere. And it doesn't matter how many times I hear Take Control or whatever song it might be, that it, I mean, it just takes me really right back to sort of the energy and sort of just love of heavy metal that I really experienced at the tail end of it just prior to when I joined the army. By that time, Raven and Accept had really become my two go-to bands, and this one here, this album is so freaking raw. Troy, I don't know, I don't even know where Raven came in with me. I think I might have got it from Chicago somehow or organically, but what do you what's your memories of this album?
I do not remember it. I was a
There
big
you go.
Raven fan too, but I think it's funny that I like the hand holding the cassette tape, I guess is what it is, because that reminds me of the hand holding the British steel razor blade.
Yeah. It's actually he's on his phone. It's a
Oh,
backstage pass type thing. But
oh,
the
okay.
funny thing about this is you remembering Raven, of course, because they had been around. They'd been in our orbit. This, I think, came out in like 84. So you and I were already done playing together by that time because 83, I think, was the last time we probably played together. I continued in
Probably.
Chicago and then ultimately till 86. But last time we played together, this wasn't out yet. But when I go back and I listen to, like, the Accept Breaker album, which I can literally listen to over and over also, this is the exact same way. This is such a great live album. Again, if you haven't heard Raven, go check this one out. They're out there. The two brothers are still out. These are two brothers and a drummer, and they're still running around out there. So that's
Yep,
part of
they're
our
still
future thing. We
around.
need to catch up with some of these bands. We need to listen to what Accept sounds like in 2020, even without Udo, what Raven sounds like, all these other things. Of course, we've already mentioned that Troy and I are going to see Iron Maiden in Bogota, Colombia this October. Look forward to maybe doing a live from there. This is the last we have of the individuals in a way. Troy, you chose this one.
I love that
This is
album.
your e
Um, I love the Eagles. My dad had the best of the Eagles. I think that came out in '74 or '75, and, I listened to that album over and over, so when this live album came out, I believe it was 1980, they had a song called Seven Bridges Road that might be a minute long, but it just floored me, their vocals and the guitaring. no drumming, just guitar and vocals and the harmonies and the vocals, and I listen to that song over and over and over, and that's just one of my favorite live albums is Eagles Live. They were such a good band.
Absolutely, and that song you just mentioned, that's one of those songs I was living in Georgia when I drive around North Georgia, like, going wherever out into the countryside, that is something I could literally put on to have repeat the entire time
Yeah.
I'm driving, and it would be a force multiplier on the experience. I mean, the 2 together the song itself is great, but it has that ability to really bring you into the moment in just ways that are different, and so we'll leave it at that without getting too metaphysical. So now we're down to the last 2. Troy and I both chose different albums here, but oddly from the same band. And it's kind of interesting because they also are sort of bookends on the era that we mostly talk about with heavy metal. So first off, we have Troy, who picked Made in Japan, and this is the EP that we've talked about a lot that came out, way back. I think Killers maybe was out, maybe about the same time as Killers, but the first album was out before Number of the Beast, certainly. And when we got our hands on these EPs, sometimes so floppy you could hardly get it onto the damn thing. 'Cause remember there was that weird plastic,
Yep.
but or purple, and so, but just a few songs on it. Detroit, yours,
I love that album because, um, that came out after Killers, and it was recorded on the Killers tour with Paul Di'Anno. I like Bruce Dickinson, but I saw Iron Maiden with Paul Di'Anno, and I just love the old Iron Maiden with Paul because his lyrics were just like a horror movie, and so when that came out, it had a "Remember Tomorrow." That's one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs is
right?
"Remember Tomorrow." Like,
Yeah,
love
yep,
this
yep.
song.
So many during that era. Not that they were on here, but Charlotte the Harlot, 22 Acacia Avenue, Phantom of the
Yeah.
Opera. I mean, Prowler. It goes on and on and on. And of course, I think Steve actually wrote the lyrics themselves, but the way that Paul delivers them is so distinctly, primal Iron Maiden like that. And of
Oh, man.
course, for any Iron Maiden fans out there, this is a go-to default. Yes, if you've heard it, there might be so many other live versions of things now that you don't realize this is out there, but this is an interesting listen to. I mean, this is very pure Iron Maiden, very, about the time they recorded Killers, as Troy just said. And so the funny thing about it is that both of us, of course, Iron Maiden being, I'm not actually wearing an Iron Maiden shirt right now, oddly, but I went at the other end of the spectrum, the very tail end of it with this one. When Iron Maiden came out with Live After Death in 1985, I think it was recorded in 84. I was still, despite the fact that I was in the army about this time. I was joining. It was the same time. And Accept and Raven were still out there and really prominent in my head. Iron Maiden was still very much my go-to band, but it had become academic. It was like another beautiful portrait every time. And these other bands had this sort of raw sweatiness about them, which I still really dug. But this album just put it really right back in there. It was so raw and it was great. I love it, and I would feel verklempt if I did not give Iron Maiden a shout out for this album here. Though it's at the tail end of this experience, and so earlier Iron Maiden, perhaps I might have favored some of the sounds, but this album fucking nails it. Troy, what do you? I know you were on your way out by this time, but do you remember when they came out with these live versions of some of those later Bruce Dickinson? Later now, but we're talking 1985.
You know, Steve, I love Iron Maiden, but I don't believe I've ever heard that album. It's oddly enough, I don't think I've ever heard that album. I know I've seen it. I know everybody's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
no,
well,
Troy's
okay,
a jerk."
okay, now listen, I thought I was taking this too far with, speaking about heavy metal only in our little slice, I at least will give some modern metal bands some credence. We haven't got there yet. But man, that's cutting it really close to the bone. So it's basically you're all out by the end of Killers with Maiden.
Yeah, pretty much. I liked,
Run to the
Number of the
Hills didn't
Beast.
do it. Not even what Okay, so you're okay with Orson, not Orson Welles. What's his face? Woe to you, O Earth and Sea.
Yeah,
Vincent
Vincent
Price.
Price.
That worked for you. That was it. That was it.
Yeah, I liked
As far
that.
as you
I
go.
liked what was the one after that? Peace of Mind. I liked that album.
Well, then they have Where Eagles Dare album, right? Nicola
Yeah,
McBrain joined the band because Clive, I think, had just left or whatever happened. Maybe ill, or I don't even know enough about the history in that
I think
regard.
he got sick and
None of my concern.
or something.
Yeah, I thought that too, but then lately I polluted my mind watching some videos, like trying to catch up on what have these bands been doing since the era I talk about. And I'm like, man, there's so fun. There's like lots of chapters here. It's like, okay, I have to go back and start with Lord of the Rings, then go to the Two Towers, and then go to Return of the King to figure out where we're at today with Iron Maiden or whatever. It's like such a saga. Not so much with Maiden, but some of the other bands. At any rate, Troy, that is it. So we are going to stop this share here. There we have it. From the top, we both shared at the beginning what we have. We had Kiss, Alive. We had Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous. We both had Little Feat, Waiting for Columbus. And we both had, who was the other one?
Aerosmith.
Aerosmith, Live Bootleg. And from there, we counted down the rest of them. We've gone on long enough, I think, with this right now. Troy, do you have any other things to say about these live albums before I want to give a shout out to some other albums that we did not mention?
No, I don't. I think we got it covered.
Such honesty. Such honesty. All right, I'm sharing
They're
a Word
all great
document here,
albums.
but I just wanted
Right?
to so I went on and I cheated. I went to the Google, excuse me, listen to me, the Google. I went to Gemini, the GTP that they have on Google, it's Google. And I asked it for the top 10 like grossing during this period because I don't want to just limit it to just us. And I know there's plenty of other things, live albums and stuff out there. And so I just want to give those a shout out. We're also going to see, Troy, that we both would agree that these are some great things. I cannot believe we did not think of this one, Peter Frampton. How do we
Oh,
neither one of us think of Frampton Comes Alive?
hey, Greg had that album. I
Come on.
loves that
We almost have to
album.
turn in our Gen X card over that one.
Right.
I mean, what did he? What we somehow missed? We both what we missed Casey and the Sunshine Man and the Hardy Boys as well. I mean, come on, this is 101.
I don't know if anybody
There you
feels
have
like we
though.
do.
Well, actually, I was going to say Boogie Shoes here, but that's anyway. So okay, Eagles. We had the Bob Seger live Bullet 1976. That's I guess is a live album, but I also know. Excuse me, wait a bit. There's another one I was going to say here. Bruce Springsteen. He had one come out in '86, which I think is the actual biggest live selling route album of all time. It's just not in here because we had to cut off at the end of '85 just to make it easy. And so, yeah, so there we have the Eagles live. There we go. You had that one. Bob Seger, again, like I just said, great. Elvis Presley, how we don't continue to give homage to the greatest ancestor of rock and roll, perhaps. I don't know, but it's happening, folks. This one here, Led Zeppelin, I thought we'd probably get some flack for this also, and Live at the Fillmore East from Allman Brothers. I'm not saying people get us flack, but I mean, how can you leave those out? But I only had so many for my top 10, and I had to be sort of honest about it. I love those albums, most of the album Allman Brothers. Troy, as far as Allman Brothers or like here, Song Remains the Same from Led Zeppelin. The only other one here we're going to talk about these last two, but what about Allman Brothers and Zeppelin? How did they not enter into your, or they just really weren't in your orbit either?
Oh no. I love Led Zeppelin. I've never been a big Allman Brothers fan at all. But Zeppelin, I don't know why I didn't think of that. Maybe perhaps because, the kegger parties in high school, that's all they ever played. The midnight movies was always Song Remains the Same. I think maybe I got burned out
Yeah.
on, the Song Remains the Same at an early age. But I love Led Zeppelin. Don't get me wrong, love Zepp.
Yeah, I don't recall Allman Brothers when I was growing up. I remember a lot of other kids were into The Who and Led Zeppelin. I wasn't. I mean, I liked the songs. I mean, I loved the Who albums and all that, but I've never really been my thing to put on.
Yeah, I was never a
Allman
big
Brothers
Who
came
fan
in
either.
same time as Grateful Dead, so I'm on board with the Allman Brothers one, but I sort of had to relegate. All right, another one here, Neil Diamond. Okay, good for Neil. I'm
Yeah.
sure everybody loved that album, 1972, two-time platinum. Okay, shout out to the next wave of Gen Xers, just a few years after us, where you probably were more familiar with the Talking Heads. I remember when they came out, but they were part of a new wave crowd that we, at the time, we didn't really have an opinion of. It was just different and it wasn't our thing. But I remember they were there. I had no idea they had a live album in 1984 that was 2x platinum. I really would like to go listen to it, actually. Troy, do
I
you
did
remember this album?
No, I do not. I guess we really burned down the house on this one.
Gee whiz. Okay. Well, we're not gonna we're about as narrow-minded as they come. I mean, gee whiz, we should just go ahead and get the horse blinders on and just march down our little heavy metal memory. All right, I don't know what that says about us, Troy, but any other things you want to say about these top tens? And folks out there, if you like this content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, things like that. It really, I guess, it helps us out. I don't really know how that works, but that's what everybody else says. It's we might as well be part of the in crowd and do that. Troy, anything else about the top, I guess, 16 or whatever we just did of our favorite live albums recorded prior to 1986?
I would love to see the comments from folks out there because there's probably more out there that we just don't remember that other people are like, "Hey, you forgot about this one, you fellas."
You know what it's going to be? It's gonna be tribute for Randy Rhoads because Randy Rhoads is the biggest
Ooh.
guitar influence I have other than Jerry
Oh,
Garcia.
yeah.
Problem with that
Yes.
scenario is it didn't
Oh,
technically come out, I think, until '87, although it was recorded at that time, and at the time that I was doing the initial list so that we could also I mean, the whole Bob Seger so dates came into it because when you start adding later, it's like, okay, was it edited, stuff like that, and so we tried to keep it there, but
oh,
probably the
I
biggest live
can.
album of that whole bunch mid-hit. That's it for
There is
me.
there actually is one more that I can think of. I can't believe I did not
What
think
is
of
that?
this. The sound I got when we played in the band was from Pat Thrall from the Pat Travers band. So Pat Travers Live was a
I
great
remember
one.
you were all about him.
Yeah, remember
Yes.
Pat
There
Travers
you
Live?
go. Bonus. Bonus.
Snorting
Right,
whiskey
so
and
this is for the people that stuck around to the end, if somebody is triggered, like, "I can't believe that they" well, in fact, we did mention Randy Rhoads and Pat Travers. So there you go, folks. We probably still left out half the and again, we can't get everybody in here. We gotta do a top 10, and we ended up
uh-oh.
doing top 16. Took us, what, 45 minutes to do it, but I'm going to wrap this up for us, Troy. This is it for this week's edition of Free Will Burning Podcast. We'll be back on next Friday. We're also considering moving to Thursday night if that would be easier for folks to listen to, for those that listen to the entire or watch the entire thing. We know that we have a lot of people that watch us on like televisions or at least put it on and they're doing their stuff around their house, whatever. Would it be more convenient to have that time there instead of on Friday because you already have a weekend plan? So if you have any comments about that, let us know as well, or anything that we talk about here whatsoever. That would be awesome. Reach out to us. We have some guests coming up next. We're going to do the every other week of the top tens, and then have either Troy and I pontificating or have a guest on in the alternate weeks. So with that out of the way, Troy, a final goodbye.
Hey, had a great shoe. Great shoe.
I don't even know. It's like, are you being David Spade? Okay.
No,
So,
that is
all right, folks, that's it for
Ed
this.
Sullivan. Ed Sullivan.
That's We'll take his word for it. And so with that out of the way, folks, that's it for this week's edition of Free Will Burnham Podcast. We'll see you next time. Take it easy, man.
Goodbye.